Welcome, everybody. Merry Christmas. We have a special, very special bonus episode for you in this Christmas day. Actually, the whole Christmas week. This year, we wanted to reflect on a few topics that are important for us as Scrum Masters, as Agile coaches, and of course, as Agile practitioners in general. So let's dive into it. What's today about? Listen in. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, the 26th. I hope you all had a great Christmas in this year of 2022. So, because it's Monday, the 26th, I thought today would be about the Agile gift I'd like to see by the Christmas tree. I'm recording this a little bit before Christmas, so I'm kind of looking at the future, even though many of you listening probably already opened your Christmas tree gifts, pardon me. The Agile gift I'd like to see by the Christmas tree is I'll name it something that is probably familiar with you to you, something you've heard quite many times. But even though it is very, very familiar, it's not something that I see that often. And to me, this is very surprising. In fact, it's probably one of the most surprising things when it comes to Agile adoption worldwide. That gift is inspect and adapt. Now, I can already hear you say, but wait a minute, isn't this like, the core of what Agile is all about? And you're absolutely right. Some of you might even say, isn't that the most obvious part of Agile? And again, you're probably completely right. But what does it mean? And this is one of the things that I would like to offer as a reflection. It is 2022. It is quite many years. I think the first Agile project that I worked on, it was in 2004, so that would be 18 years ago. And although at that time Agile was still kind of a niche, it was already quite popular in many circles. And these days in 2022, it is, I would say, perhaps even on par in terms of adoption with more traditional practices. So why is Vasco still hoping to get inspect and adapt for Christmas, for his Agile Christmas? Well, so one of the things that we need to do is to try to understand, what does inspect and adapt mean really? For teams, for organizations that are adopting Agile. And the first part, of course, is the word inspect. And inspect is about understanding what is going on in a deep way. I remember a story I read early on in my Agile journey where Taishi Ono, who was one of the developers of the Toyota production system, Taishi Ono was a manager at Toyota, and he would ask the managers to stand in the circle. And the circle was a literal circle, so he would draw a circle on the factory floor, and he would ask the manager to stand in the circle and observe what was going on in the line. And he would come back a few hours later, and he would ask the manager what he had seen. Invariably, the first few times, he would not be satisfied with the answer, so he would ask the manager to continue to stay in the circle and to continue to observe or inspect. And what that relates to is this aspect of deep understanding. A lot of the things that we need to understand as Agile coaches, Scrum Masters, are not necessarily very visible. And in these days of remote work, with lots of meetings happening through video conferencing, it's even a lot harder to actually inspect what is going on. And in order to inspect, you have to be curious, but you also have to be patient. It also means that you're not defensive. You and the team are not trying to justify. You're just trying to ask, wait a minute, why is this happening this way? Why did Mary answer that way? Why is John standing back with his arms crossed? Like all of those questions, simple, non-judgmental questions that are about understanding deeply what is going on. That's the inspect part. And then comes the adapt part. And obviously, adapt should be easy to understand. Once you understand deeply what is going on, you adapt to it. And adapting actually means something a lot deeper than, on first reading, it might seem. The first connotation that comes with adapting is change. Of course, we do need to change, and change is a constant for us as Agile coaches and Scrum Masters. But adapting is also about learning to live with things as they are. We don't always know what can be changed and what needs to remain as it is, but obviously that is a knowledge and experience that we need to develop through our inspect practice. And once we are able to understand what can and cannot be changed, then adapting isn't only about change, it is also about learning to cope, right? So certain things, certain policies, for example, in organizations cannot be changed. And even though they may seem stupid or wasteful, we need to be able to adapt to those and adapt in a way that is productive to the team and maybe even specific individuals if that is the case, but certainly to the wider organization as well. So the inspect and adapt core cycle of what Agile is about is the Christmas gift for 2022 that I would like to see by the Christmas tree. But inspect and adapt cannot really prevail without us also understanding that it is our job, Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, to continuously promote this aspect of Agile, the inspect and adapt. It's very easy for us to get caught up in tools, Scrum being one of them, but also others like SAFe and certain planning tools like work breakdown structures, estimates, also physical tools like Jira and so on. And it's very easy for us to get caught up in those tools and forget that actually it's not the tools we are there to serve, it's the people we are there to serve. And tools, even though they might embody certain very good practices, they are not self-sustaining in terms of adoption and in terms of impact. It's the people whom we work with that are able to extract the value out of the tools that we use, whether it's Scrum, Kanban, Lean Startup, Lean UX, design thinking, planning methods like SAFe's planning increment. That there are many different tools that we can point to and say, hey, let's do it this way. But we really need a lot more storytelling because it really is through stories, the deep understanding of how those tools work, but also how people interact with them and with each other when the tools are present, that is necessary. This storytelling that I'm referring to is a little bit like people gathering around a campfire and sharing things that have helped them in the past, maybe discussing some challenges they've had and asking friends for help. It's this kind of storytelling that I'm talking about. We do have a Slack here on the podcast that you can join and share your stories as well as ask for stories, ask for support from the community. I'll put the link in the show notes. But the important thing that I'm referring to really is building a community of storytellers. And inspect and adapt is only really possible if we create this universe of stories, this catalog of stories that we can share with each other to sustain that inspection, deep understanding, and adaptation that is required for Agile to be a success at our working place. Finally, I would like to leave one reflection for us. When it comes to tools and inspecting and adapting, there is one aspect that is quite worrisome for me. Many teams that I work with, many organizations that I work with and that I talk to are still focusing way too much on planning. And this is deeply ironic for me because it is often the really pragmatic people, the people who say they want to get things done, that go back to the mantra of we must learn to plan better. This is counterintuitive for me because if I think about someone who's pragmatic, I think about the ability to separate what is accessory from what is essential. For me, that's one aspect of being pragmatic, right? And planning is accessory. It is people's collaboration, communication, and actually the work that is done that is essential. No matter how good the planning might be, if people aren't communicating to go around unexpected surprises, which invariably happen, then we will not be able to get things done. So it's deeply ironic that we still see very pragmatic people that would otherwise not get hung up on tools or methods to go back to this idea that, oh, we failed because we didn't plan enough. This is even more surprising when it happens so often, right? Like we fail to stick to the plan once, and okay, you'd be excused to think that the plan was wrong and you try it again. But when you do it twice, three, four, five times, maybe even for decades, it starts to seem illogical for a pragmatic person to go back so often to the idea that planning will save us, that planning will make us better. In fact, if I go back to the beginning of this episode and the gift that I would like to see under our Agile Christmas tree, it is the inspecting and adapting part that is failing. It is the inspecting and adapting part that is missing from the planning practices that we so often use. I have written about no estimates, uh, and there's quite a few blog posts on my personal blog that I'll put a link on the show notes for people to go and read some of them if they're interested. And in those writings, there's a very common thread, a thread that repeats in many of those stories, which is this idea that planning may be the starting point. Planning may be a practice that we keep on executing on, but planning isn't the reason we fail or succeed. It's the lack of inspection and adaptation. It's the inability to understand what is going on and therefore respond to it that causes failure in most software and product development projects out there. So the question for you, the reflection question is, what are those situations in which you think, not others, you think that you have relied too much on the planning tool and not enough on the inspecting and adapting cycle? Think about that. I think this is a great reflection for us all, including myself, as we go on to this new year of 2023 and we start, perhaps, hopefully, making sure that the inspect and adapt Christmas gift will come to the world, to the Christmas tree, the Agile Christmas tree of 2022. So I'll leave you all with that question to reflect on. Merry Christmas. Thank you for listening. Now, I'm going to make a very short announcement, and then after that, we have a surprise for you. So thank you for listening to this episode and this week of bonus episodes. Leave us a comment at scrummastertoolbox.org about your thoughts on these topics that we covered today. We want to hear your perspective and also your questions. So you can send us questions. So email us at podcast@oikosofi.com. The email address is in the show notes. For now, thank you for listening. And now the surprise is coming. Right after this, we have, for the first time, the full podcast jingle. 2 minutes of upbeat, feel-good music to get you energized and excited for the day ahead. Here it comes.